Right, everybody, welcome back to another episode of What the Devil. It's my first time back in the studio after a month. Been away, a nice relaxing time. I've come back and Man United are crap at football. I left and we weren't fantastic, but I've come back and we're even worse. I was watching the Palace game at 2 a.m. when I was there in the little pods in Japan, just sad because we can't score any. Yeah, but we can't score any goals. That's what I find crazy. We're creating the chances, we just can't score goals. And then I came back, FC20 game, we weren't great. Well, we were fine, and then just the fact that the goal we conceded, FC20 in the first goal against Spurs, just one bloke runs straight through us. Again, Van de Ven, we all know he's as fast as anything on this planet. But just the way we played against Spurs and the way we played against FC20 and the lack of finishing against Palace, and obviously the Barnsley game won 7-0. That's the only game I haven't watched this season is the one where we scored 7 goals. But I've come back and it's just like a house on fire, but not in the good way. I'm just a bit sad.
Now go on, you go first, you said, man.
Me first?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's a real shame because Southampton 3-0, Barnsley 7-0. You think that's a real opportunity for these boys to build some confidence and just get going, start banging the goals in. And then Palace happens and we just can't score a goal. We should be 4-0 up in 20 minutes. Now that game should be done and dusted at that point, but we just can't score. I don't know how we just can't score them kind of by 70th minute. It's 60th, 70th minute, we're kind of finished off at that point, but it was just, I don't know. And then Twente, I didn't actually watch Twente. I was coaching out in the cold. Then Spurs was just completely inexplicable. I just he changed the setup. I don't know why. It was a really stupid setup to use against Spurs. It didn't make sense. It was getting exposed really early. He didn't change it in the game. It was just really stupid.
Yeah, the 2 games that Amad Diallo hasn't started in the Premier League has been 3-0 against Spurs and 3-0 against Liverpool. I, for the life of me, can't understand why he's not starting either of those games. I think he's been our most consistent player in the games I've watched. He's been the most consistent player this season. He was the first player to create 6 chances, or youngest player to create 6 chances in a Premier League game since... who was it? That's someone in 2016 for Man United. He's created so many chances. Again, I say we can't score goals, but against Spurs, we barely created any good chances. I know when we went down to 10 men. That is what it was. It was never a red card. We know this.
Yeah.
It's that, but there's no point complaining about that because we were terrible anyway. We didn't deserve to have 11 men on the field.
Arguably got better after the red card.
Yeah. So I suppose that's because we kind of almost gave up on the Ballon principles and went, you know what, we're just going to go try. We got there close, but
it really infuriated me actually. We got a red card and we started going man to man. I was like, what on earth are you doing?
Yeah,
but why?
Marcel, what is wrong with Man United? Well, what is it?
I don't know, Dylan. I actually don't know. I think there's the manager. The way that he's setting us up is obviously not right with this squad of players. It's obviously not working. And then it's a combination of the players themselves, just some of them really out of form and not being able to carry out what the manager wants. But the manager's not doing us any favours, just the way that we're kind of set up. I don't know if it's... I don't think we're a good side with 2 in the midfield. That looks like it's a massive issue. And then the way that he wants, so many players to run into the opposition's half or to be in the opposition half from the get-go, it's like we're really vulnerable in the back, and then the build-up's not been brilliant this season. It requires us to be really good in the first phase of play, and we haven't been. His combination, his ability to pick the 11, like you mentioned, one of the players in Amad, that he should be playing most of the games. He's been brilliant in this season, and Garnacho's been looking like he wants to play as a left winger and been kind of decent. He's been sharp, so he should be playing for majority of these games. But he's been persistent with Rashford, so. And then even in game management, against Brighton, his substitutions changed the dynamic of the game in the wrong way, and then we concede that silly goal. I think even against Villa, we kind of died once he made the changes. Not Villa, sorry, against Crystal Palace. So we just haven't been able to score goals and to look like an actual team that's going to be able to do things in this system and shape. I think he should just go back to the 4-4-2, how he was doing it before, or the 4-2-3-1, how he was doing it before in the first season. We just looked a lot better, but I can't tell you exactly what it is. we're about to do exactly what happened to Ole. You know, Ole got sacked at this point. You know, he had a first season. He was interim for a little bit, but let's just say that was the first season. Then he had a second season, and then his third season, I think he had like 13 or so games before he gets sacked. So
I think he had 2 full seasons before he got sacked.
Two full seasons, yeah.
It was 1920, 2021, and then 21-22 is when he got sacked.
Yeah, so in the first part of that, so he was approaching to complete his third season, similar to Ten Hag now. And, you know, he's about to be sacked again, Ten Hag, you know, and it feels like that's imminent right now, to be honest with you, Yusuf. And that's a worry for me, because I feel like we're going to be stuck in that same cycle again with a new manager. Should we persist and let this manager complete the third season to see what happens? You know, Ole was telling us, you know, that he wants us to take the next step as a football club. He wanted Haaland, he wanted Jack Grealish, he wanted Declan Rice. And that was going to allow him to push the lines up and play maybe a different style of football than the counter-attacking football that we all thought we hated, that we all hated. I hated this style of football towards the end, Ole's style of football. And just the way the team would dismantle sometimes before half-time or whatever. We always had to do comeback wins, all these kind of things. But, you know, we're literally about to start the same cycle again. That's what's happening. And it's fault of Ten Hag. I'm not trying to say that it's not fault of him. But do we allow him to persist with this to try and change the fortunes? Or are we going again with a new manager? I just don't know.
Well, this is the question is it a sackable offence?
3-0 against Tottenham is definitely a disgrace. I mean, that's at home, Dylan, as well.
Back-to-back 3-0 losses at home against Liverpool and Spurs.
Yeah, but it's like he wants to, you know, some of the managers back in the day, they'll be like, this is our style of play. We must continue to play it no matter what. You know, like I want to say a Pep at Barcelona or whatever. And even though they would get beat, but they still had to play their style. I feel like Ten Hag against Liverpool, he didn't change his style. Against Spurs, he didn't change his style. He's persistent to try and play this style against better teams. I'm going to say better teams or better 11s than our 11 right now. Is that a good thing or a bad thing? I don't know. Should we sack him on the premise that he's still trying to play his style of football no matter what, and it's just not working?
So, personally, I'm actually going to disagree. I think against Liverpool and Spurs, he actually did change what he was trying to do, but he changed it in the wrong ways. If anything, actually persisting with what he was doing almost would have been better. So against Liverpool, actually, there were elements of the style mixed in. There was a clearer idea. Then second half, we kind of just fell apart. But the first half, you could argue for a lot of it, we were the better team, and there was a lot of bad execution, and we gave away a really silly goal. Against Spurs, he changed it, and it was an inexplicable change, to be honest. It really did not make sense to change to that style of football against Spurs.
If we've got a manager who's doing that, that's not the manager I want. Like, so if you have had, okay, on the face of it, 8 of the starting 11 played against Spurs, either debuted under him from the academy or he signed.
Yeah.
So it's like 2 academy players and then 6 players that he signed. Yeah. And the other players who were playing were Diogo Dalot, Marcus Rashford and Bruno Fernandes. 3 players that he clearly sees as completely integral to him and his squad in the system. So that is 11 out of the 11 players on that pitch are players that he's brought in or values very highly. And then he produces that first half. I know it's to the players who produced that first half, but he set the players up in whatever that was, because I'm not even quite sure how to define what that was. And we know the red card is what it is. And as I think we all agree, we actually got better after the red card, marginally, even though we conceded another 2 goals. But it's the 11 players on that field are his. And he can't use them, or they're not good enough. But if they're not good enough, then why has he bought them? And if they are good enough and he can't use them, then he's not a good enough manager to manage Manchester United. If that's how it is, then I don't want him.
It's a complex discussion, in my opinion, because it's the thing of, right, players are making mistakes. Ten Hag setups are making mistakes. When there's a mix of those two, this is what my entire article last week was about on District, in that you can't just blame one party. Right now, Ten Hag is very, very blameable for a lot of things. Spurs, I think Ten Hag is the party to blame the most, whereas against Liverpool, I would have said that I think the players are actually a bit more at fault for this game, but Ten Hag didn't adapt within the game. Part of the problem is he doesn't adapt within games very well. It's always been a weakness of his, one I highlighted when he came here. But I also think the players, weirdly, as much as he's signed them all, a lot of them actually don't fit very well. It's a bit of like a weird mix of players, if you know what I mean. And I know that almost sounds like very bad, like given he has signed them all, but they actually are, they can be a bit of a weird fit. given in a lot of ways. I also think with the starting Garnacho over Ahmad thing, the idea is Garnacho, Rashford, direct runners behind the line. But what people forget, if you're going to set with a transition inside, you need players who can make the ball stick to make those transitions flow smoothly. And someone like Amad Diallo makes those transitions, he makes the ball stick. He just moves out transitions, a very direct player. And when you look how Arsenal played against Spurs, they beat Spurs by going over their press, right, to beat the press. But they have players in the attack who can hold the ball. They have Havertz, he can hold the ball. Saka, he can hold the ball. For us, Rashford, he's a powerful player, but he doesn't hold the ball very well. Garnacho can't hold the ball. He actually had a couple moments where he held off Udogie decently, but right now he's still a very raw player. There's some arguments he's not even ready to kind of start consistently. He can't hold the ball as well. Xerxes, technically, he can hold the ball, but physically he lacks a bit of fight. In my opinion, it's quite frustrating when you have a guy as big as he is to just not seem to kind of want to get into it as much as the defenders. Ahmad can hold the ball because he's technically good, but also whilst he's small, he shields the ball very well. He uses his body very well. So it didn't make sense to me to not play Ahmad in the game because, like I say, if you want to thrive in transition, you need players who can smooth out those transitions. It's not just simple as kick, run, score, right? I don't know if anyone remembers that meme about the 3/3 of the pitch, first third, just tackle, win the ball, and then the middle third, ball magically moves to the other side, final third, score, right? It's almost that's the idea there that a lot of people have with this kind of transition thing, but it really doesn't work like that.
Yeah, no, I agree. I would say I don't think it has to be Ahmad over Garnacho or which one. I think Garnacho should be playing on the left and Ahmad should be playing on the right. I think Bruno, you can't have Bruno and Xerxes, I think, in the same team. It's just his ability to pick the 11 to get the best out of what he's trying to do. He can't see that, and on that premise, I think we shouldn't have him because we could construct a better 4-2-4 and select better players. He needs more legs in that midfield, so you can't have.
Like the 4-2-4.
I hate. Yeah, I don't like that he's playing two in the midfield and he's doing the 4-2-4. But if you're going to do that, select better players than what you're selecting right now.
So the idea behind the 4-2-4 is actually to kind of about generating turnovers high up the pitch.
Yeah.
But I always prefer a 4-1-4-1 as a press. That's from my own kind of coaching style. I prefer 4-1-4-1. Maybe it doesn't generate as many turnovers, but I think you're a lot more centrally compact. You're harder to play through. And that's the problem. Right now, we are not centrally compact. So yes, we've got those two goals that you mentioned in about Twente and Spurs just running through the middle of the pitch right now. In that 4-2-4 press, there's a lot of demand on those two players, all right, to shuffle wide in the right moments, okay?
The midfield two or the front two?
The midfield two. So in the Spurs one, for example, Ugarte has got to come out and close that space. I know Jamie Carragher was on...
Blaming the Ligt.
Yeah, Jamie Carragher, don't listen to anything he says, by the way. Absolute moron. But... it's not De Ligt who's got to come over and close that space. It's Ugarte who's got to come over and close that space, but Ugarte's not out to close that space, so he's got that space to drive through. And that's the kind of demand that 4-2-4 places on those middle players. In my opinion, the 4-1-4-1 is a bit more centrally compact. And he did it against Palace, and you could see the impact it had. We were a lot more... They couldn't play through us in the middle, right? It was only later in the game when they switched their formation from that 3-4-3 to a 3-5-2, that we started struggling a bit more against them, and we didn't respond to that change that Glasner made. But we need to just compact that middle a little bit more, right? As part of the problem you said about how Bruno and Xerxes play, Bruno plays next to Xerxes almost. That's another part of the problem, in that Spurs just take advantage of that. A lot of teams take advantage of the fact that Bruno is so high up the pitch sometimes, and they just exploit that space in the middle. They overload the middle, and we've not got the legs to cover that. Ugarte is a very erratic player as it is. He's got legs, he's very erratic, but he's still building match fitness and rhythm fully. Mainu, he's a good defender in large spaces. He's going to struggle if you make him defend. Christian Eriksen, he's a player who will struggle in large spaces if you make him defend in them. So play to their strengths a little bit more.
So so I've been saying for the longest time now that the midfield two in that 4-2-4 should be Ugarte, Bruno, because there's legs there in that. That's all you need in that two.
That's a very trigger-happy midfield.
No, but
very trigger-happy midfield.
And guess what kind of football we play? Trigger-happy football in transitions. You want to get it out to the wide players quickly. Well, if you select the right squad, the 11 footballers, then it's not a problem. His formation is, I don't agree with it, but his formation is meant to dominate the game. It's meant to have a lot of 6 players up in the opposition half. They can't get out, and when we get the ball, we're transitioning out into wide areas quickly. So those two should be trigger-happy footballers that are always trying to get. You saw it. You saw what Bruno was doing in the first game.
You look at United Heritage, for example. Okay, what you're describing is very much United Heritage about getting the ball out to the wingers, quick transitions, very direct play.
We played
but
two.
We thrived with Scholes and Roy Keane. You can't look at Ugarte and Bruno and tell me, okay, that's anything like that, or Scholes and Carrick, okay. Those are 2 players. They're not trigger happy. They're not trigger happy footballers. Those guys are not trigger happy footballers. You don't need trigger happy footballers as that too. All right. If anything, you need footballers who pick their moments well.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So I guess we're going a bit more into specifics in that sense. But those 2 footballers, if you're talking about Keane and Ugarte-esque, and Scholes, who can spread the play. Hold on.
Keane to Ugarte?
Ugarte-esque. So hold on. Please. And then you've got Bruno, who can play the long passes out into wide areas like Scholes.
Bro, just put the mic down.
Think about it.
Down, bro.
Think about it.
I'm not thinking about that.
Think about it.
I thought about it and it's bad.
Fair enough.
Please put the mic down, bro.
Fair enough. But those two players have certain elements of their game that they can do and take from a book like Scholes and take from a book like Keane. They have those attributes. We've played 2 in the midfield before. So you can have Bruno in the midfield and he has the legs for the transitions, and you have Ugarte there who's defensively strong and has the legs for the transitions. You can't put Kobe there. By the way, when we was talking about Bruno and Xerxes as the other 2 in front of those 2, what our issue is there is that Mason Mount is a much more disciplined 10 than Bruno is.
If anything, you'd actually want Mount in the 2 instead of Bruno.
That's what I'm just coming to that. So
as in the midfield too.
Maybe as well, because we've seen that against Spurs last season. So that's also, but it's options. By the way, I'm not saying these absolutes in terms of Ugarte, Bruno. Those are the 2 that I would put. But Mount is definitely free in that list, simply because, again, legs, can retain the ball. We saw that last season against Spurs.
What I think about Mount is that he's spatially intelligent. He knows how to cover ground well. It's not just he covers ground, right? He knows what he's doing when he's covering ground.
In front of him. So
even recovering. Even recovering, he's generally just a very spatially intelligent player. He's not gonna be like Ugarte can be a bit of a headless chicken at times. Mount's not really like that.
I understand that, but so I think for those 2 anyway, it's paramount that they have legs. And if you put Eriksen there, that's not gonna happen. If you put Casemiro there, that's just not gonna happen. If you put Kobe there, it's just not gonna happen. Kobe should be a 10. Kobe should be one of the 10s, and the way that Ten Hag wants the 10 to work in the 4-2-4 is like.
Isn't it more like a second striker than a 10 though?
Yeah, and they're shielding and covering. Like they don't have to do as much dynamic running and risk so much space in behind them when they're the midfield 2, the 2 left DM or right DM. They don't have to come all the way up into midfield and beyond. Like there's so much shuttle in there. Kobe shouldn't be doing that. He can create the play. He can slow the tempo down for the transitions, like you're talking about, alongside Ahmad. So he's a perfect player for that, and he's got the physical profile. So we can play the long passes into him, or a Xerxes, or a Højlund, as those 2 people up front. But his ability to select 11 that can implement his instructions and how he wants to do them well enough has been shocking, and that's part of the problem.
It just sounds like to me that we're trying to play a system that doesn't work, and the manager's trying to build a whole system that doesn't work with, as what I said before, the players he has. So in my solution to this would just be change the manager.
Yeah.
Because if he's trying to build a system with players that he's bought that doesn't work, because clearly then therefore maybe it's a system that the new leadership team, as they call themselves, maybe doesn't agree with, because they're the ones that started to pick and buy the players now, such as Ugarte, etc. It just changed the manager. Like, we've been so bad, and if you're bad for a game or 2, it's the players. If you're bad for a month or for 10 games, it's to a certain point, it's not the players, it's the manager.
Well, it can be both.
But I think we're not going to sack 23 players.
Oh yeah, no, I agree completely. I think that it is a mix of things. Like, this is why I always say, like, you can't just put it down to one person. And a lot of people take this as me, oh, he's defending Ten Hag, oh, he's trying to exalt Ten Hag blame. No, I'm not, right?
I'm actually saying, right, it's just not as simple as you think. So Ten Hag is very much a fault for what's going on right now. I think he will be sacked going into the October break, and in all honesty, he should be sacked. I even said, like, as much as I did want to see him get given more time, he should have been sacked at the end of last season. He was very lucky to keep his job. And I said, this season's an opportunity. I said on here, I will judge him much more harshly now. I want to see style and results, but results are key. And
we're
right
even
now,
worse.
he's not getting results. There was a bit of an upturn for a bit, and I think in a lot of the games we've played this season, we have played a better football, but we're not getting the results, and that's the problem. And then a game like Spurs is so disheartening to see your team play like that in just such an inexplicable fashion. And it's not good for the players, because he changed that style, and you could see how confused the players were. You could see like how confused they were with that new system. And this is, I think, a lot of reports like coming out suggest saying that actually training sessions are very good. Apparently players like Ruud van Nistelrooy a lot, but he then on match day it looks different. So I think there's a few issues. I think is the manager's part of it. I think execution on the players is a part of it. I think general club culture plays a part. There seems to be like a deeper psychological problem with this club. Like this, because this is not just a Ten Hag thing. This happened under Solskjaer as well. This has been happening for a
managers
long time. Like it's not just managers. Okay, yes, managers play a very big part. It is not just managers though.
Yeah, no, that's fair enough. But also, the manager is the thing that you, at the end of the day, the one thing you can change. Like I said,
no, definitely.
Towards the end of last season, when we're talking about should Ten Hag keep his job, but around the time of the Palace game, if you're going to change everything about the club, being the people upstairs, the recruitment team, everything, you may as well change the manager as well. Mm-hmm. And there was obviously the argument that no, you need one like at least central piece of continuity and everything changes around it, but it's not worked. And I think he should go. He will get these next two games, and even trying to just step back and take a look at it from a non-emotional point of view, do not see us winning either of those games convincingly enough for me to change my mind. But I think he should have gone after the Spurs game, like immediately after the Spurs game, because that was outrageous. But I can understand why you may as well wait until the break to like maybe say kind of day after go right, he's done. And also we've now got 2 weeks to chill out. Plan. Yeah, but at the same time, he shouldn't have been in there in the first place. Like after the FA Cup game, obviously I was like, you know what, fair dues. You beat Man City FA Cup, blah blah blah. And then in hindsight, should have been your last game. I don't see any way as well that it gets good enough to the point where we will be happy that he wasn't sacked during the October break. I can't see us getting all the way back to, like we said before, off camera, up to the Champions League spaces, blah, blah, blah. I don't see that happening, and that's the only way that I'd think fair dues, Ineos were right to keep him when we all wanted him sacked in October. To me, I cannot see that happening, so therefore, may as well bite the bullet now, and I can't say what we should do the next. Like, I don't know, but right now, I just don't want to see him managing United.
I do also think what he wants to do right now, what we're seeing on the pitch, is not an accurate reflection of what he wants his team to be. But what I do think is that he will not get his team to that point, I'll be honest. And one of the reasons I wanted more time for him was because I wanted to see whether he would get that opportunity, whether he would actually make the team get close to what it is. But I more and more of the time, I just think I really don't think this team is going to become what he wants the team to become. I see what he wants the team to become. I actually quite like it, but I just don't think
it's not going to happen. I don't think. So you may as well get rid of it. And the other thing is, everyone has excuses, right? There's always an excuse. There's always there was the Euros. Players didn't have pre-season. Players still getting used to it. But Manchester United didn't play in the Euros. Every team, especially all the top teams, had players playing in the Euros, etc. And I can't remember if there was another international competition or not, but basically
Copa America.
And Copa America, that's it. So people like Liverpool, they had other key players playing Copa America, like Luis Diaz, etc. He's come back, new manager. They've hit the ground running beautifully. Right, Liverpool, they're top of the league, 14 points. They had these players who were playing during these games. They had players, Gravenberch, who's been amazing for them in midfield, was with the Netherlands, just like Joshua Zirkzee was. And so, he had less of a pre-season, but it's still a new manager, new style, all of this. Like, every team has these excuses because these things happen to every team.
I think
and why is it that he is allowed to... But he's allowed to basically go, oh, sorry, my signings came in a bit late. It's fine, we can lose the first 5 games then. No. To me, it's not enough. He's had enough time, and he should... I
think the situation at United is very different to the situation at Liverpool.
Excuses are way different.
But because it's just such a messed up environment in all areas. But I do agree, like I just don't think he's going to make it work at this point.
Our excuses are way different. You can't compare what Liverpool had settled and compared to Man United, unsettled, open heart surgery just completed. You know, there's now a recovery stage where you have to learn to start walking and running again.
I do get that not every club is the same, but it's every single season so far and every single summer there's been something major where it goes, oh, this happened. Like at some point you're going to have to just say, deal with the problems, get through it and be better. And we can't be better under Ten Hag anymore. I just don't see it.
Yeah.
So I just don't, I don't understand why we bother keeping him.
Yeah, I can understand that. And that's why I've been saying to the end of October, because then you give him the fair shot of the 10 games, the 10 Premier League games anyway. But, you know, I can understand why people would want him gone. But in terms of what his team looks like, go back to Brighton in the first half, even Fulham structurally, the very first game. But again, it had Bruno as Mason Mount as the 10. It's like this guy won't even be, in my opinion, if I was the manager, I'll be selecting a completely different 11 from him. That's the issue. That's why I would want him gone now. Because the way he wants to actually play football, this transition football, I think it can dominate.
We have good players.
But
we have I think we've got a set of quality players and players that he's
very
brought
young,
in, and he can't use them properly.
But what he's shown me is that they're very young. That there's so much to get out of them and develop as footballers.
This is one
it's
thing.
not even like they're ready yet. Like they're ready to be first and second. They're not. Zirk says so much more to get out of him as a footballer. Mason Mount he's not got to that world-class level yet. Ahmad, not got there yet. Garnacho, no. There's so many of them that we're looking at them and we're saying, well, they're not actually creme de la. They're not Liverpool level,
This
are
is
they?
one thing
They're
I
not
will say.
City level, are they? They're not Arsenal level, are they? So he still has to have this idea and philosophy and still try and grow them into that next. It's gonna take time. It's gonna so we're battling with that as to where we are as a football club, and his predicament's way different to like a Liverpool one, where every single one of them they got a Premier League or a Champions. It's completely different. Arsenal have been showing that level that they're literally going to get to the league title if Pep wasn't around. City's team, they have so many stacked with trophies and medals. It's like. But he's bought potential, but he can't get it to function in the way that he wants to implement it. And then the way that he wants to implement it is so high risk. It's so niche with he's not picking the right 11s. That's the most annoying thing about me.
That's crazy.
Yeah, and then his in-game management is shocking. Like he doesn't know how to change the team. Like it's just crazy.
He's bought potential. This is why I say a new manager does not change this squad overnight, because I still think some of our fans do think of our squad as their final form a lot when a lot of the players are not at their final form. But like you say, he's playing with a lot of risk. He's almost like he's bought these developmental players and he's like exposing them to extremes. Now, in the long term, Højlund, for example, I think will be a better footballer for having gone through what he went through last season. But at the same time, you need results, and he's not gonna get these results now. So in my opinion, it is best to move on. And I think everyone who knows me knows who my pick would be.
And I want to move on now to one of Ten Hag's signings we've been talking about. There's been a lot of talk in the press about it, and everyone is Ligt. I think Ligt's been great overall since we signed him. And I don't understand where, stemming from Paul Scholes, who seems to be not happy with this signing from minute one, but I don't understand where this discourse around him has come. Yes, there was that moment, obviously Carragher criticising him and him being criticised for the Spurs moment, but as we've said, that wasn't necessarily, it's not an isolated mistake from Ligt. It was a whole system failure that allowed Mickey van der Ven to run through 100 miles an hour.
It was also actually Ugarte. He blamed Ligt for not covering the space when it was actually Ugarte who was supposed to cover the space.
But I want to say just overall that I've been really impressed with Ligt. I really think he's slotted in brilliantly. I quite like him alongside Martinez. I just want to spend a few minutes talking about I think that people really need to calm down on Matthijs de Ligt. It's like he's not this terrible bust that people keep saying he is.
He didn't even have a pre-season. Like Ten Hag told us at the beginning, we're not ready. And again, I don't excuse. The way people think of the word excuse is different from how I'm thinking of it right now or how I'm trying to use it now. But it's like he's gonna get time for him to get used to being part of the team. And he hasn't been playing poorly. He scored an important goal. He looks like a massive threat from set pieces.
He's had the most shots on target of any centre-back in the Premier League so far. He's had like 5, I think.
He's not a poor centre-back. He's just in a really dysfunctional football team of an 11 that's on the pitch. Like the way we're meant to mesh together as a team is very dysfunctional. So then there's a lot of times where he's going to be put under pressure. We've seen him get spun a couple of times. I think against Crystal Palace, he had a tough time in the first half. Got spun a couple of times, but in the corner. Who was it?
I think it was
Walker Peters.
Yeah, that was against Southampton. Walker Peters did him one-on-one.
Southampton. So one-on-one, done him one-on-one a couple of times. So against Southampton, he's had a difficult time.
And then he scored.
But exactly. So it's like he's coming to his own into the Premier League kind of thing.
The thing is, against Southampton, he had that one moment against Walker Peters, but then for the rest of the game, he was brilliant in the box. When we played high up the pitch, he swept up everything brilliantly, defended high, scored a goal. Against Palace again, brilliant, defending. He defends high up the pitch very well. I think people have this idea of him as this guy who's good in the box because he can win headers and block shots. He's actually defended high up the pitch very well, right? And part of the reason is because he is comfortable starting higher up the pitch than Maguire. As you look at Maguire, right, you all notice him step out, right? What people don't notice, he starts a few yards deeper. So Ligt actually makes his job easier by just starting higher and getting tight to his attacker from the start. And you can see when teams go long, he just steps in. He'll shrug off his attacker, no worries. He's a strong guy, right? Wins the ball back. Okay, every now and then he will get spun. Every now and then, like there was a moment against Spurs where he jumped in and got beaten, didn't quite get the ball. That happens to every defender. But for the most part, he has been fantastic. And in my opinion, what it is that people are arrogant. I think people saw on paper, he was a brilliant talent at Ajax. He wasn't what we thought he'd be at Juventus, and then at Bayern Munich it was quiet. So he's not going to be good. Now, in my opinion, that's a false narrative, okay? I thought he was very good at Juventus and developed a lot in a different system. Yes, he wasn't what people hoped he would be, but he was still very good. The same happened at Bayern Munich. He was very good. In fact, Bayern Munich fans started a petition to keep him at the club. Okay, so he was a good player there. People said this thing, Thomas Tuchel didn't like him. Thomas Tuchel started him the majority of last season. When he was fit, he had a shoulder injury that kept him out for a while, but and also this injury-prone narrative, I think, is a bit misleading. He's had a couple of big injuries, but he's not like a guy who just picks up injury. So, but I think people thought that he wasn't going to be good, and now they don't want to admit they were wrong, so they're just clutching at any kind of straw they can find to avoid that. That is what my personal opinion on the Ligt situation is, and why people are talking about him the way they're talking about him. Because if you actually watch the games, he's been very good. He's sliding quite nicely on the ball. Yes, he's not the most progressive player ever in build-up. He doesn't really need to be per se. Like one error here or two. Like you say, he's not had a preseason. He didn't play football since May. He didn't play a game of football since May, and then came in. He has been defensively fantastic in all areas, whether that's in the box, in the mid-block, high up the pitch. He's been a very big set-piece threat, which is something that United have lacked for a few years. But in recent years, it's literally just been Casemiro, and sometimes Maguire.
Yeah, Maguire.
And Varane. But Ligt is like a real I feel confident on set pieces now because of him. Like offensive set pieces, I just feel like this guy is going to get a chance or two every single game from a set piece. So there is in my opinion, it's just arrogance from people. They don't want to admit they were wrong. I will leave them to their foolishness and continue enjoying watching him play football.
Yeah, I agree with that. I mean, Ligt is I think he's still got a lot more to show for us in this team right now, and he's part of, for me, what looks like a good partnership. I mean, Martinez has not been brilliant this season, but I think there's hopefully more to come from him. But we just keep exposing the back line, which is a bit worried. But it's because of the way this manager's got us set up, and I would really hope for him to turn it around. But similar to you, Dylan, I don't see, unless it's 3-0 against Porto, and then another 3-0 against Villa.
It's never happening.
But in the world of football, who knows? So I'm just going to be ultra positive from that standpoint. Unless it's he doesn't concede anything, and it's a good couple goals in both games, I can't see any reason for them to keep him beyond I would say the end of October. I'm still going to say beyond the end of October, because I know there's that international break, but I don't know. Nah, they have to say when I'm going to change that, actually. They have to. I think they have to maybe change it up.
Split second decision.
Yeah. Honestly, because it's like, when I think about it properly, no one's going to be happy with a win against Porto in any fashion, really. In any fashion, whether
Yeah.
it's a
It'll
1-0,
just be like,
2-1.
oh, fine, but
Oh,
we
fine.
lost.
Yeah, but
Yeah.
look at your previous body of work thus far. These first however many games, it's not been convincing enough.
That's what I'm saying. I'm saying like with Ten Hag, just rip the band-aid
Yeah,
off.
and
Really
then
just get rid of him.
And then against Villa, even though that would be a very good win and they're a direct competitor for us for that top 4 space, they're going to be in and around it. You know, it's away from home. You had 2 big home games where you should have got something out of against Liverpool. We've seen you beat Liverpool at home, and then Spurs. We had this. That's the worst team out of all the teams that were competing for top 4, in my opinion. I think even Newcastle maybe are better than them for me.
Spurs weren't good before they beat us, by the way, as well. Like
Yeah.
they were on a pretty trash record. Even I think Ange Postecoglou said before the game, he was like, "Yeah, I know we haven't been great."
They hadn't,
and they completely played us off the
park. They hadn't
park.
won consecutive games.
Yeah.
So it's just
we played into Spurs' hands, right? We literally almost set the game up for them to win, and that was the most infuriating thing.
I think when we go, because you're right, Yusuf, in terms of there's a combination of, you know,
Always right,
there's a degree, not always, impossible. That's
You're
impossible.
right, you're right.
But it's like you're right in the sense of there's a combination of the manager to blame and the players to blame. Because for that first goal, I know everyone the spaces are not right in terms of, and I think Carragher was mentioning it in terms of like nobody knows when to engage or close the spaces. But I think that's, you know, interpretation from the players as well. Ugarte should know when to close that space. But then also Diogo Dalot. Why is Dalot not? He's left a man free at the back post.
I think he expects it to be dealt with. But this is what I'm gonna say this. Okay, I've been saying for a long time. I think communication is Ten Hag's biggest problem, okay? People take that as a cop-out for not criticising the tactics, okay? But in my opinion, that's just their own lack of understanding. Because you think about it, okay? The literal core skill of your job as a coach is to communicate, all right? Your tactics. How do your players understand if you can't communicate them, okay? Everything in coaching, you have to be able to communicate it, okay? In my opinion, he's not an especially effective communicator, and this goes back to what Benny McCarthy. And it's kind of crazy it's come from someone who was on his coaching team to say, I think he lacks a bit of that passion, that fire, he's not the most effective communicator. In my opinion, this is his biggest weakness. And this is like, and I've said this before, players not understanding, it starts from themselves, okay? But then your job as a coach is to correct that and to make them understand, right, through your communication. I've had players in the past where they don't quite understand what I want at first. So what do? I explain it to them and then they understand. And is not rocket science, okay? It's just pressing.
Right, let's move on to the Porto game. So this is Porto games tomorrow, 8 p.m. kickoff, Europa League away from home. And couple facts about the Porto games. I've just been doing a bit of research there. As I've mentioned to you, Marcel, before, they're not good at. So they are very good at not losing at home. I think in the last 10 years in Europe, last 10 seasons, they've lost 8 or 10 games overall. And considering you play 4 or 5 home games a season, and Porto normally get into at least around a 16, etc., they tend to be quite good at home. And the second thing is I was doing a bit of research on the referee for tomorrow's game. The guy, German referee, he's refereed 7 games so far, given 37 yellow cards, 3 red cards and 2 penalties. And the number of yellow cards we got against Spurs, and another red card as well, and I think we've got a fair few yellow cards so far this season. All of it's lining up to be another not fantastic day away from home. So we're flying all the way to Porto. And the only way I see us winning is like a cheeky 2-1 win. Same with like for the Villa game, I see us winning by conceding possession, everything, and then hitting them as an inferior team on the break. I don't see us winning either game convincingly, but about the Porto game specifically, who do you want to see start? Who do you not want to see start? Because personally, for me, I want to see Ahmad start. I do want to see Ugarte start. I'd like to see him continue to get minutes, and then I would want to see Ligt continue, and pretty much the rest of the 11 picks itself. Rashford, I would want to see continue. I want to see Højlund start as well.
Is it? You guys want to see? And you as well, Yusuf. Rashford in?
Yeah.
Wow. I want Rashford to take a month off, and I want Bruno to take a month off. The way that they're implementing this 4-2-4 is not working.
The thing is, I actually think that Rashford's been playing better than Garnacho.
No. So I think we gave Rashford, he's been assisting a couple chances, but I think his overall contribution to the game's not been good enough, especially on the defensive side. Then he scored a couple goals or something, and then we said, he's finally got the goal scoring form. Let's keep him on for a little bit. But I don't think that was enough in terms of what kind of energy, the actual, like the dynamic running that Garnacho's given to us.
This season Rashford's put the work in defensively.
You think so?
Definitely. There was one moment against Spurs where actually Spurs had a transition. I saw it from like a corner or something. I saw Rashford sprint all the way back. I've seen it a few times this season. Rashford will sprint all the way back. He's actually putting the work in this season. Is his understanding of his pressing as good? How many players in the team right now do have that? So like it's not the best, but in terms of the actual work being put in, okay, in my opinion, it's said like previous season narrative people have on Rashford because he actually put in the work in this season.
I want to disagree with that slightly, Yusuf. I just don't think he's been doing enough defensively for me. And then offensively, it's not been as sharp as we know it can be. And I think Garnacho just has that exuberance of youth, and he's given a lot more in the 90 minutes. And then obviously Ahmad needs to.
I think Garnacho is less reliant on confidence than Rashford. That's the main thing. Like he'll go for it no matter what. But I still think Rashford has been a bit more like effective, like in terms of chance creation and stuff. And I would still back Rashford to kind of grab a goal, especially against Porto, because under Conceição they're very like they play a real death block, okay. And one of the only ways we might be able to beat that is by like a long shot or something. And Rashford is, as a ball striker, we know what he can do. So I want to see like Rashford kind of just get an opportunity to shoot and just shoot.
I hear that. And then Ahmad needs to start for me. And then Bruno has been one of my favourite players in the team, but he just needs to be out the team for a little while. And I just don't think he's a 10 anymore. She's not the first option as a 10, as I was saying at the beginning of the show.
I wouldn't mind seeing Bruno benched.
Yeah.
I think I agree with that.
Yeah, Kobe, please. Well, unfortunately, I think Kobe's injured for a little bit, which is such.
Well, he was in training this morning.
Oh, that's good news.
So, I agree with you, Marcel. I wouldn't mind seeing Kobe play as the 10 against Porto, assuming that it's okay for him to play. So I'd have, who would I have? I'd have Ugarte, Mainu as a 10, and then I'd probably say Eriksen.
I'd
probably say Porto can be a game for Eriksen because I don't think they're going to come out and dominate the ball. I think they're going to like sit in that block.
Yeah. I reckon so. My 11 would be Onana in goal, back four, De Ligt, Martinez, Mazwari, and Dallo. I think there's no other options really.
Yeah.
Midfield 3, so midfield Eriksen and Ugarte, midfield 2, and then Kobe in front of them. And I would go Rashford, Højlund, just so he can get minutes. And so Xerxes can not start.
Yeah.
I've quite liked Xerxes, but I want my strikers rotating. I want Højlund getting minutes because I think we need Højlund. Højlund's a great player.
You need
and then Ahmad. I think Ahmad has to play. Especially if we're playing against a low block, like you said, we need Ahmad in that team. Ahmad is so good at just getting the ball into the box, either whether it's passing into the box, driving into the box, or running himself into the box and creating space for someone to pass to him. We need Ahmad in that team. But that would be my front three, my starting 11.
See, I think Eriksen should also be considered an option for a 10. I would just really like to see how because the best example at a 10 for this football club in this system is Mason Mount. Nobody can show me a better, and I'm talking about when we don't have the ball from the build-up. He's the best at it. He's not, and then when we're building up from our side of the pitch, he comes into like central defensive mid and tries to play the bounce pass and then get himself up high up the pitch again. He's way better than Bruno's kind of erratic, free roaming 10, that kind of thing that he does. And then even the way that Bruno presses, it breaks the structure of his strike partner as well, because he just goes all the way up to the goalkeeper and stuff. Bruno shouldn't play 10 anymore in this system. When he had the keys under Ole, it's understood because you have two people always around you trying to make, every time you lose the ball, you've got Scott or Fred there ready to run, cover ground and defend for your mistakes. But in this system, those two players behind him are not trying to do that. They're also trying to focus on squeezing space in front of them as well. So you need someone that's a bit more disciplined as the 10. So I think Eriksen, because he doesn't have the legs, he might be a bit more smart about the way he runs in this as a 10 in this shape.
I think I'd rather Mainu as a 10 because he's a quicker thinker.
Yeah.
He's a quicker thinker and better with his feet.
Eriksen, a lot of what Yusuf is saying in terms of in as a transition game, when you have the ball in the final third, you need people that are going to retain the ball or keep it there. Against Brighton, that game, it was so transitional because Ahmad comes off and now we don't have anyone that keeps the ball and just says, relax, let's keep it here and let's build. We've done the hard work of getting the ball in our half. We're trying to get it quickly into their half now, but now we need to relax and make the right decisions.
I think one thing I will say as well, without Eriksen and unpopular Casemiro, I think we actually struggle to progress the ball through passing from midfield.
I forgot we had Casemiro.
I know he's been terrible, but Liverpool. When you look at I was also horrible. I'm not advocating for starting Casemiro, saying, but we struggle to progress the ball through passing. Eriksen, technically, in my opinion, is the best player in the squad, but he is the best passer at the club without a doubt for me. Casemiro, again, he's a versatile passer. With other options that we don't progress the ball through passing enough through the midfield. So I think I could see Eriksen being deeper, Mainu a bit higher, or even Ugarte just sitting on his own, Eriksen and Mainu as eights kind of in those wide half spaces.
How do you think we'll survive though on the transitions? Because that's my thing. The only thing that those two midfielders have for me, any sort of use, is just their legs. I don't even think they need to be special at anything else. They just need to be able to cover the ground. So with Eriksen there as a 6/8 or one of those two, Porto are gonna maybe get dividends off us in the transition if you're saying that they're a low block team.
But then how you got to control those transitions? The part of that is controlling the ball. It's really not as simple as just they've got legs, so stick them in the field. Because then, what do you do once we get the ball? Because the whole point of that, those legs in midfield is to win the ball back. But then when you win the ball back, what do you do? This is it.
I agree with that, because there was a moment against Twente where, I think it was Twente, where Eriksen is in that position in the midfield area, but even though he makes a mistake and gets caught out in another moment, but in this moment, he's in the midfield, we're trying to keep them penned in, and instead of going long, he just does a three or four passes with his defensive line, with his 10, just to retain the ball in that position where we've lost the ball, we're a bit panicky, or we've just regained the ball. That's when your most tendency to lose it again is when you've just gained it. Makes the right decision. So I agree with it. It's just if they do get free flowing transitions and we're always going backwards on ourselves for rest defense, I think he gets caught out too many times.
Yeah. What are our score predictions? Final thing, Porto game.
3-0 United.
3-0 United.
I've never predicted United to lose on this podcast, so I'm gonna keep it down. I'm gonna say 2-1 United.
I was gonna go 1-1.
3-0.
That's what my head says. Okay, my heart is okay, I can't predict United to lose. I just can't remember.
I think it'll be 1-1.
3-0 Manchester United, and then we all start getting panicky because we're like, well, why are you doing this now to us, Ten Hag? Why are you putting us in this position?
Let's say he just goes out in style. I don't see us winning 3-0. I see us drawing 1-1, but I mean, yeah.
I'm conceding. By the way, I'm wrong. I got to put my hands up. I believed in this manager, but he's not going to make it. He's not going to make it. And I believe in all managers, but this one more in particular, because I was one of the last people to say Ole out. I really wanted to give him as long as possible. I was saying it was very early in the season. And we'll get into that space now. I believe in the managers to the end, because I feel like, they're not deliberately trying to set us up to lose. Yeah. They want to win their things. Yeah. But it's like, he's got to a place now where this is you cannot support 3-0 at home. Loss.
Yeah, it's crazy.
Spurs, you cannot support
crazy,
that.
It's crazy.
Yeah. So the moment he loses to Porto, if he does, because it's possible he can win, and if he doesn't pick up 3 points against Villa, then I have to put my hands up and it will be time for him to go.
I'll always be grateful to Ten Hag, because he genuinely did do a lot of good for us as manager, but I think it is a point where I just don't know that he will get to where he wants to be, where we need to be. And at that point, I think you just have to kind of, part ways.
Yeah. Pretty somber end to the podcast episode, but thank you very much for tuning in and watching. Hope you've learned something from this 48-minute chat. But I'd like to see a win. At the end of the day, I always want to see us win. Just something, but I guess we'll figure out, and we'll see you next week.